Coming up next, today's song was a comeback #1 smash for a legendary rock band that lost their famous lead singer to stomach problems. The band had no clue what to do until they were turned on to a singer with one of the most distinct voices ever. He was actually a background singer for a famous group. And after so many hits with their former singer, today's hit with their new singer became their biggest. And I think that it came from he and another legend, a collaboration that became a #1 smash and a double Grammy winner for Record and Song of the Year. And it was written before the two even met, pretty much as they were shaking hands for the first time. The two icons were both aware of one another, and they knew they wanted to each write with one another. So a meeting was set. One of them pulled into the other's driveway, and he heard a song being played through the screen door, and he immediately thought of the next part. The good news is we have both legends here to tell the story. They both cut versions of the song. Find out which one came out on top and why next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you're a master of fixing eaten cassette tapes, you know the beautiful relationship between a cassette tape and a pencil or pen, you're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure that you subscribe below right now to get to know the real stories behind your favorite songs. Most of the time we get them from the artists themselves in exclusive interviews. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This show takes an in-depth look into songs that transcend genre, decade, and fads. These are songs that are monumental touchstones in our culture and within our society. So today, we're giving you the story behind the 1979 classic #1 hit, What a Fool Believes, from Michael McDonald and Kenny Loggins. What a fool believes. The two of them wrote it together in the late 70s. It's become one of the greatest, one of the most perfect songs of the entire rock era. So let's go back a little bit to get this story straight. So by the end of 1974, the Doobie Brothers had been a mainstay on 70s radio for a long time. Massive hits like Listen to the Music and Long Train Runnin', China Grove. Amongst many others. And at this point, lead singers Tom Johnston and Pat Simmons were on a roll. Then they had their first #1 hit with the Simmons-sung Black Water. And then Tom Johnston's health went from bad to worse. He was actually suffering from the rigors of the road. He even missed out on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve that the band was due to play with the big artists of the day, including the Beach Boys, Chicago, and Olivia Newton-John. The Doobies then released Stampede, which contained a great cover of the Motown hit Take Me in Your Arms. And that was sung by Tom Johnston brilliantly. This album was ready to be promoted by the start of the spring of 1975, though Johnston's condition was so terrible that the legend required emergency hospitalization for a bleeding ulcer. So with Tom Johnston resting and the tour for Stampede already in process, Skunk Baxter, who had played with the great Steely Dan, ended up recruiting a fellow Steely Dan alum, to help with the singing duties. And it was none other than singer-songwriter and keyboardist Michael McDonald. That covered the tour, but the Doobies were still contracted to do another album in 1976. So in essence, the Doobies were at a crossroads. Tom Johnston was still in bad shape, so at this point they asked Michael McDonald and Tyrone Porter to write songs to combine with Pat Simmons' stuff. This became the classic record, Taking It to the Streets. It was actually a 180 for the band, going from rock and roll to rock and soul almost overnight. Well, after quite a few hits, Kenny Loggins, a rising singer-songwriter in his own right, he discovered the album Living on the Fault Line. He was mesmerized by Michael McDonald's playing and his distinct voice. He was dying to work with this smooth-voiced legend. Now, on the same account, Michael McDonald had heard Kenny's stuff, of course, with Loggins and McDonald, and his solo stuff, and he wanted to write with them as well. So a meeting was put together, and the first thing that they wrote was What a Fool Believes. Actually, Michael McDonald was working on the song, and he kind of hit a wall. And it was Kenny Loggins that helped finish and break through that wall. I don't want to give it away because we have interviews with both of them, and they'll tell you, we'll get it straight from the horse's mouth. One of my favorite rock and roll stories for sure. It's a great interview. What a Fool Believes, it's a perfect pop song. Actually, in the past, Michael McDonald has shared that his concept for the lyric was a scenario where two people meet in a restaurant, two people who had a close relationship a long time ago in the past. In the man's mind, the affair was the best thing in his life. But to the woman, it was okay, but it was time to move on from it. In this conversation that happens, the man makes a complete fool of himself. When the woman gets up and departs, this guy, he just doesn't get it. He's thinking that he still has a shot with this girl and that this love affair was a lot more meaningful than it actually was. The message here is that love can make the wisest of men out to be complete fools. Now, when they finished the song, they both released versions. Michael McDonald's version with the Doobies, that went to #1. It won a Grammy. It was actually one of the only non-disco songs to hit #1 in that year. Kenny's version didn't do as well because, according to him, it was Michael McDonald's piano playing that was another key to this hit. I guess Michael was out of town when Kenny recorded his version, and he says it definitely missed out on his signature playing. Coming up next, both Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald tell the fateful story of creating this all-time #1 hit, along with a special guest appearance by Skunk Baxter, who, as you remember, got Michael into the Doobies.
It was a huge seismic change. And that same thing happened with the Doobies. When I brought Michael into the band, it was really a situation where I had to make a command decision. And when I say I had to make it, there really wasn't anybody around who kind of had a solution to this problem. So when I called Michael and said, here's a one-way ticket, you should, be in the Doobie Brothers now. Not that it was, here's a contract, you're in the Doobie Brothers, but the right person, I thought, at the time, to not replace Tommy, because there's no replacing somebody like that.
No.
He's such a tremendous musician. But I guess in the same way as that happened with Fleetwood Mac, something had to be done. So I knew Michael very well. We were friends. And I picked up the phone. And literally, he came out and we rehearsed for a week. Because I had gone out on stage after that show at Louisiana State University and said, you can all get your money back, or you can give us about a week and we'll put on a show for you. And nobody cashed in their ticket. So Michael came out. We rehearsed very hard. We went out and we did 5 encores. We ran out of songs. I think we had to do a couple of Marvin Gaye tunes or something. I think I made the right decision.
Yeah.
And there are people that will say, well, you ruined the Doobie Brothers.
There's always going to be people like that.
And okay, because people have strong beliefs and strong feelings.
Oh, God damn it, man. The Doobie Brothers broke up. Shit.
I think giving the Doobie Brothers a new direction and breathing new life into it was probably deferring to those other folks who may have a problem with it. At least the band is around now.
Let's talk about the second album, Night Watch, which went to number 7, was a big hit, and has a song you wrote with Michael McDonald. What a Fool Believes. And you already told me this story before, but tell me it again. This is such a great story about how you guys
I like
came
to
together.
say that we were writing together before we met. I heard Living on a Fault Line, the Doobie Brothers record. And was blown away by this new voice. I never, it reminded me of the first time I heard Winwood in Traffic. It was like incredibly solid, unique voice that I knew was going to become a force. And the first thing I said was, I got to write with that guy.
What's interesting about that story is it's a song that almost probably didn't get written, at least by us. It was a germ of an idea. I had like a verse of lyrics and just kind of that piano riff for the verse. No bridge or chorus, anything like that. And I kept promising Ted Temple and I would finish it someday.
So I put out a feeler to try and catch up with him through management stuff. And simultaneously, I got a message that he was looking for me to write with me because he likes to collaborate. So we made a writing date, and I went over to his house.
We got together, made plans to write. So he came down to my house in L.A., and I was running through a bunch of ideas, looking at lyrics, just trying to come up with anything that, might be a place to start for us with a song. And that was certainly one of them. I was kind of playing it at the piano, trying to imagine if that would be something that Kenny would even be interested in. I think I was playing it for my sister, who was cleaning the house frantically in anticipation of Kenny Loggins showing up. Because I was a bachelor then, and there was piles of ashtrays and empty beer cans and stuff on the piano, and she felt I could make a better presentation as a human being. So she was madly cleaning up around me, and I played that one thing for her. And she said, "That's nice." I was playing her everything, a little bit of everything that I had that wasn't finished or wasn't, that I thought might be a good start for us, just in case we were stuck. When the doorbell rang,
I was unloading my guitar out of my trunk. The door to his house was open, and I heard him playing the piano. And as I'm walking up to the door, I hear, which ironically became the actual lyric of the song. And so he's singing this melody, and and he stopped. And my imagination kept going. And so I knock on the door and I say, Mike, hey, hi, we shake hands. I say, I think I know the next section to that thing you were playing. So we walked in and started writing the bridge like immediately. And that was one of those moments where we were up till like 3 or 4 in the morning writing. And then I took it home and listened to it the rest of the night. And when you have a big fish on the hook. And I knew we had a great song.
Of course, I jumped up and went to the door, and there was Kenny with all his guitar and his shoulder bag full of tablets and pens and a tape recorder, and kind of fumbling with all this stuff. And I helped him. I grabbed a couple things from him and helped him in through the door. And I said, "Man, it's so great to meet you." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Before we say anything," he goes, "You were just playing something on the piano right before I knocked on your door, and I was listening to it. Is that something new?" And I said, yeah, that is. In fact, I was playing it, thinking of possibly showing it to you. He goes, "I want to work on that first. Let's work on that before anything else." And that happened to be What a Fool Believes. So within a day or two, it probably took us about 2 days to write the song. Kenny had already written the bridge outside the door. So by the time we sat down, he already had a bridge in mind.
And you cut it first.
Only because I was in the studio before him.
Yeah.
We never really had a formal agreement about who would cut what. We just said whoever gets there first gets to have it. So I got This Is It, but he landed What a Fool Believes. Even though I'd recorded it, I made the fatal mistake. When you write with Michael, Michael's got to be the piano player. Nobody plays like him. And as good as my guys were, they didn't capture that thing that he plays with. And so we never quite had the feel on that tune. But obviously they did.
I mean, not only was it #1 hit, but you guys shared the Grammy, Song of the Year.
Yeah. Yeah, which was somewhat intimidating. You know, we didn't write a second song for at least 6 months.
This is it. Make no mistake where you are. Rises to her apology. Anybody else?
Tell me about that last version.
That last version, that sort of soulful, slow version, I came up with when I did an album called Live in the Redwoods.
Yes.
In Santa Cruz, California. And I wanted to reinvent everything. Yeah, thank you. So I worked with C.J. Vanston, and we did an arrangement of What a Fool Believes. A couple years ago, I went to Europe to do some shows in Europe, and I'm in Paris doing a show, and we're at soundcheck, and the promoter comes up to me, and after about a half an hour soundcheck, he says, "You're going to do your hit, aren't you?" And as far as I knew, I never had a hit in Paris, in Europe. And he says, "Oh, yeah, I know What a Fool Believes." I said, "No, that was the Doobie Brothers." He said, "Not here. That was your hit here."
Wow.
That was the version.
Yeah.
So, God, what, 90-something. Pretty cool.
Well, do you know that George Michael covered it, by the way?
Mm-mm.
George Michael, what a talent.
Yeah.
What a talent.
Great voice.
You know, that it kind of brings a tear to my eye seeing that. We were supposed to interview him in a few months. But anyway, what did you think when Aretha Franklin covered it?
One of my favorite versions. I still
she's
cop
somebody
some of
you've
her
always
licks.
loved.
She really reinvented the phrasing in that song.
He's watching her go.
Yeah, I love it. If you get a chance to YouTube Aretha's version, it's pretty cool.
One of the most incredible singers ever, if not the most incredible female singer of all time. I mean, that was probably just an honor because I know that you've told me before that you listened to her records growing up.
Yeah. As a singer, my primary influences are all female singers.
Yeah.
Because no one puts two and two together when I steal their licks. Because they expect me to rob from guys. But as a singer, your influences just show up. Suddenly I'm doing a Chaka Khan lick, and suddenly I'm doing Aretha.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of noticing it as I'm singing. My brain is going, "You know where you got that, don't you?" Yeah. That's chain.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Make sure that you leave us a comment about this amazing #1 hit. One of the greatest songs ever. What do you think? Is it the greatest song of the late 70s? What version is your favorite? What are your memories of the song and both Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald and the Doobies? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like this video, we do invite you to be a full-time part of our community by subscribing below. Hit the red button. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.